And here we are, guys. You finally have been patiently waiting. After all of these unboxings, we're gonna finally get down to the nitty gritty and build Andre's computer. And I'm gonna be showing you guys in a couple of different steps the major parts of actually building the computer, what some of the components are, and some of the interesting things to note about it. Any little kind of nuances, I'll let you guys in on that. So first and foremost, what we're gonna do is actually gonna be putting some of the pieces together onto the motherboard, mainly the CPU, which is this Intel Core i7 6700K, and we're also gonna be putting the RAM as well. This is some DDR4 RAM by G.Skill, 64 gigabytes, 4 sticks of 16 gigabytes each. So let's get right down to, I'm gonna show you how to put all of these parts onto here so far, and after we'll move on to the next step. You guys might be asking yourselves, why the heck are you shooting this in the kitchen? Where's your studio at? Right now, I'm in Vancouver. I'm in Andre's house right now, and we're getting the computer built up first and foremost so we can get back to streaming and bring you guys the content that you love and enjoy. So let's get right into it, and first and foremost, and we're gonna install the CPU into the CPU socket. So first and foremost, what we're gonna do is we're gonna install the CPU. This is the Intel Core i7 6700K. Right there, still in the protective packaging, and we're putting it into the CPU socket over here. It says that first we must install the processor first, then remove and keep this little cover in case we want to transport this later, upgrade the CPU, whatever the reason might be, we have to do that first. So these are pretty similar. Even AMD is going to have some very similar system. Is you unlatch the little hinge over here, and that part goes up. And now we'll take the CPU out of this protective packaging. Try not to touch the bottom leads at the bottom over here. There's all these little contact points, same thing over there. Don't touch it with your fingers. Always try to do these things as carefully as you can by just holding it on the edge, just like that. Alrighty, and the next thing that we wanna do is we wanna line up. There's this little notch on the corner here. You see it's a little slightly different color triangle, and we see there's actually a version over here on the motherboard as well. That means that those corners are gonna be going there. Another thing you can also look out for is these little notches on the side there. So this is a zero force you have to apply. You just leave it there, and what you do next is you take off that little plastic covering thing by actually pushing it down and putting the latch back onto it on the bottom, just like that, and this actually comes off by itself. So as you can see, the CPU is now securely fastened to the motherboard itself, and it's just all being held up by the latch. So what the next step that you could do, we have a water cooling setup, so it's gonna be a little bit different, but at this point, if you want to, you can also put on the fan on top, but we don't have one in this case. The next step that we're gonna be moving into is installing the RAM. Next up, we're gonna be installing some DDR4 RAM, and now this involvement is gonna be pretty similar across even older versions of RAM, DDR3, DDR2. A lot of these same things that you're gonna be doing here, we're gonna be doing for that one too. So the first thing I'm gonna suggest to you guys is find the notch on the RAM slot itself. It's right there. You see the notch between both points of contact over there, and try to line it up to where it is on the board itself. So we know that it only goes in one way. If we try to flip it the other way, the notch does not line up anymore. So we know that that's incorrect. So what I would do first is just make sure all these hinges are just all undone first. This one only has it on one side, so we just make sure all those are done. So what we do is we just slowly insert in the RAM, just like so, just to the point where it's almost touching the bottom, but not yet. So once that's in like that, we're just gonna take both of our thumbs on the edges over here and then push down until we hear it click. Just like that. So we hear that little click, and that's in. So we basically do this for the rest of the RAM slots that we have. If you guys have only 2 sticks of RAM, what I would just do is install it on the 2 colored slots that are the same. For example, the 2 black on here or the 2 cream. But since we have all 4 slots that we're gonna be filling up, we're just gonna do it for all 4. So same thing, just make sure that the notch lines up internally there. Drop it in. Once it's near the bottom over there, we're just gonna take our 2 thumbs and then insert it the rest of the way till we hear a click.
That's some really cool looking red.
I know, it's G.Skill. I love the red over here on these things. Some you can actually like change out the little, nah, it's still good. Sometimes you can change these out if you want these heat sinks. So same thing, take the notch, line it up into the slot, push it down slowly into there.
This is a total of 64 gig?
Yeah, each of these sticks are 16 gigs, so 16, 32, and then 64 in total. So
it's math.
There we go. So we're gonna push those down with our thumb till the click, and we're good. And last but certainly not least,
one more chance to mess up here.
Exactly, and I don't think it's happening, so we're gonna make sure it goes all the way to the bottom, and then finally click into place. And just like that, we now have our CPU and our RAM both installed. So next up, we're actually gonna put the little motherboard stands inside of the case. So because the motherboard doesn't go directly inside the case, it's these little stands that actually lift it up from it. And then afterwards, we're also gonna be installing the motherboard inside as well. Before that as well, we're gonna have to put the Motherboard Io Shield just on the back there so the ports look good. First and foremost though, we're gonna have to get these little things on here. Inside the case itself, you'll see they're usually a different color so you can differentiate them. Here, they're in their case, they're gold. And we're gonna put them, because it's an ATX case and we know that, we have to put it where all of the, it might be hard to see, but where all of the A's are. So there's a couple of them. There's here, 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 here. So wherever they are, I'm just gonna put them in there and we'll take you to the next step, actually putting the IO shield and then the motherboard in. So next we have the little IO shield in the back here, and this goes directly over here so you're able to access all of your ports from the back of the PC. I've already gone ahead and lined it up with my current motherboard because I know it's gonna be going in this way. So I already had lined it up like this, so I know it's gonna be going in this way through the back. So it's pretty easy. You have these little edges over here, these ridges, and you just put it in, just like that, and you make sure it clicks in on all areas.
It's a lot of clicking.
Oh yeah. Until all 4 sides kind of go in, and then you're left with it being flush, just like that. So the next part that we're gonna do, and that's installed on the back.
So that's all your USB ports and all that, right?
So you can see, yeah, so they're clearly marked. So the next point that we're gonna do is we're actually gonna drop the motherboard onto these little standoffs over here, and then screw the motherboard in. Sounds good.
I'm gonna film this insertion process. That looks beautiful already.
Mm-hmm.
You got those all in over there?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see that on the You can see everything is correctly in over here. Got plenty of USB. Got plenty of everything. How many USBs does that?
It's quite a few. So the next part over here to see is any little hole where we had put the standoffs in, we just gotta put the screws into it and make sure that the motherboard is securely attached. So I usually like just to start in the corners and then work my way into the middle. So it's helpful if you have just a light magnet on the screwdriver itself. Nothing too powerful to screw up with the motherboard, but even just having a light magnet on it helps a tremendous amount. So the screws, if they fall in, you can retrieve them, and hopefully they just don't fall in general.
We're doing a late night PC build over here. No furniture yet, except for Barstool. All right, so that took a minute. You look like you're traumatized.
Took a little while. So anyway, next we're moving on to the GPUs, the graphical processing units. These are the GTX 1080s that we're gonna need to install.
Oh boy!
Oh yeah, these things look like fighter jets right here.
Yeah, we got 2.
So we know that we're gonna have to install them in the 2 16 times PCI Express slots over here. It's gonna be these 2 right here.
Black and like
the gray ones.
Gray.
But we'll also need to pull off some of these these ports in the back here. Since we know this is gonna go here, we know we're gonna have to remove those 2. So let's go ahead and remove those 2, and then we'll move on to the next step. Similar to how the RAM is, we want to make sure that it lines up properly before pressing it in, and once it is lined up, push it in just like the RAM. You won't hear as much of an audible click, but if everything seems in place, then you're good to go. Then instead of these things, just keep them safe somewhere afterwards in case you want to replace it or put something else. And in the interim, put these little things back just over here on the GPU to make sure that it's securely tied into place. So we'll go ahead and do both of them and show you guys what that's supposed to look like afterwards.
So what's the most satisfying thing of building a PC, Billy?
Probably the part when you actually turn it all on and everything works, hopefully the first time around.
Has that happened to every PC build you've done?
Yeah, actually the first one I ever made didn't turn on at first, and I completely forgot why it didn't. Eventually fixed it, but especially your first time building one, it's pretty disheartening to feel when it doesn't turn on properly the first time, and the power just didn't go. I think it was something simple, but...
Something with the power, wasn't it, or something?
Something like that. It was something simple, but just to... It's so heartbreaking.
So don't get discouraged, though.
No. Whatever the problem might be, someone has to have a solution somewhere online.
All right, this is the thing I want to see.
So this is the actual SLI bridge between the two.
It looks cool. That's why I want to see it.
That's the thing, right? Part we've all been waiting for.
Does it look as cool as the picture shows?
I think so.
Let's see it.
It'll look even better.
Jeez. It does look better. It looks intense. I didn't think the back
connections
would be
over
like
here. So let's see, we have to make the connection between here and here, and here and here. And yeah, just press down. And now we have a nice little SLI bridge between the two. We'll be communicating at full speed. Yeah, better than that little dinky cable that they used to roll back in the day.
This looks awesome so far. So I think you're not gonna notice it if you're watching this, but I think we're gonna take a break for the night.
Yeah.
He's on Eastern time zone, so it's like
It's a 3-hour difference.
3 hour. It's like 3 a.m. or something like that. So
it's like, yeah, it's almost 2:30 for me, so I'm dead tired.
so there's not too much more to do though, right?
No,
Like, what's left?
there's all that's really you have to do is the hard drives and the power supply.
Oh wow, that's hardly
And
anything.
that's really the rest of it. Honestly, that'll probably take like another, not too long. For you guys anyway, but for me it'll take a little while longer. But for now, the cool parts are done.
Let's get an overview of this. Looking sweet so far, man.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
It's gonna be exciting. Welcome to day 2, guys, where we're continuing with Andre's gaming PC. So there was one thing that I had noted before going to bed last night because I was super tired. So we're continuing with day 2, and today we're gonna be doing the hard drives and the power supply and just the final little cable routing, and then afterwards installing Windows and showing you guys the final product. But one thing I had noticed that I kind of forgot to mention to you guys, especially when you have these really long video cards like the GTX 1080, you can see it's really, really long, right? So one thing that I forgot to kind of notice was that the SATA ports on the motherboard, I'm just bringing this down so you guys can see it a little bit better. They're located over here. So these are the ones that are gonna be connected to your hard drives afterwards via SATA cables. So the previous video card, if you can see already, the length of this one here is already kind of covering that area there. So it was really hard to get to. So what I had to just do this morning was I removed the video card and routed the cables already through there and then out the back. Because in this particular case, the hard drive bays are located on the back. A lot of the times they're actually located somewhere over here on the front, somewhere up here on the top, but the Define S puts them at the back to create more airflow. Instead, we have our radiator with our 4 fans pulling all the air through.
So why don't we show them where the hard drives are going to be located?
So they're actually, this is why I like this case, and actually the Corsair 540, which I have for my personal computer, also has this as well. All of the hard drives are located on the back. So the 3.5 inch hard drive, so the bigger one, so this one right here, this 4 terabyte hard drive, it's gonna go somewhere over here. I'll pick a spot, but it's gonna go in the back there. And the 2.5 inch SSDs, there are 2 spots right over here for them to go to. So for ours build over here, we're using a 4 terabyte Western Digital Black, and for the SSD, we're using a 1 terabyte Samsung 850 EVO. So I'll show you guys how to do that, and as you can see, I already routed the SATA cables back here for them to be used. And yeah, so we'll move on to the next step and you guys will see that. Alright, so the first things first is we're gonna install, you can do it in either order. You can do the SSD first, the 2.5 inch drive, or the 3.5 inch drive. I'm gonna do that one first over here. So in this particular case, this is the area, 1, 2, 3 different panels for the 3.5 inch drives. I'm gonna just be doing it out of the middle one just because the cables over here for the front fan radiators are a little tight, so I don't really want it to be blocking this area. This area seems a little bit kind of, you know, more clear in the area. I don't want stuff blocking, and like I said, this one's kind of blocking it up there too. We're gonna be doing some cable management later with it, but I think at least for now, we're gonna just put it in the middle. So with this case, it's really cool. You can just remove, this one corresponds to each panel, like this screw to this one, this screw to this one, this screw to this one. And then once it comes up and off, just be careful with it. You can actually attach this to this over here, and then that, or rather, to this side over here, and that'll be it. So I'm gonna actually refer to the manual for this particular case because I've never worked with it before in order to show you guys the proper orientation. So basically how this one's gonna roll is that because the SATA ports for power, which is this bigger one over here, and SATA for data, which is this smaller little L shape over here, which is what we'll be connecting via this one. And then eventually we'll get to the power cable, but that's how that one connects it via data, just like that. And the proper orientation is just like this, so when it goes in the area here, all the data ports and the power will be there. So all you have to do is take the 4 screws, make sure to line it up with these little holes here, and just screw all 4 of them in. Okay, so we've already gone ahead and installed the hard drive with the 4 screws onto this little bay here. So just as the way for this case, we're just gonna slide it into place. Kind of put this behind there. Put the 2 little slots in just like that, so it's secured. And we're just gonna thumb screw this until it reaches a point we can't do it anymore, and then afterwards just finish off with the screwdriver itself. So we've also had the SATA cable that we're running into here, and we'll already go ahead and connect that, and then once we install the power supply, we'll give this bad boy some power too. So here we go, this is the one that I've designated for that. And we're gonna plug it into the SATA one right here. So there you go. So now, right now it has data, and it's all gonna be cable managed later, but for now, the 3.5-inch drive is done, and next we're gonna move on and install one of the SSDs. So for this one at least, let me see how I'm liking this one. I could probably we'll put it on this little one that's a little bit further away. So same kind of deal with this one is you pull this panel off, you install the hard drive onto the actual panel itself, and then you put the panel back. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you guys and show you the next step. Alrighty, so we have the 1 terabyte Samsung SSD over here. And just the same thing as we did with the 3.5 one, we're gonna line up the little screw holes on the bottom with the ones over here, and then afterwards put 4 screws in there just to make sure it's secured, and then put it back in that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that and show you guys how to put it back into it. Alrighty, so we have the SSD, the Samsung 1 terabyte SSD. It has been securely fastened to the little mount over here. And just a quick note, even on this hard drive as well, there's also these little screw holes too. Because your case might be different, that's something just to note here, that these could be your mounting screws, for example, for your case. You never know, but in this particular case, the mounting is on the bottom. That's why these hard drive manufacturers do screws on both sides, because the case manufacturers change it up. So this one is pretty easy to put back into its place as well. Just line those up, put it down. I'm gonna use the thumb screw and just make sure it's going in the right hole. Right there. Oh, that one fell out. Just make sure it's going back in. Do it with my thumb for the first couple turns. Once I can't do it anymore, just finish it off with the hard drive. Nice and secure, and it actually looks like it with the black. It looks like this is a part of it, and this is the one that we wanted to use for the data. Let me just move these out of the way here, just so it's not. These are going to be really helpful actually in the future when we're doing cable management. But at least in the meantime, let's just get this thing up and running. So we're going to put this same thing as a 3.5-inch drive. There's the data SATA port, which is the smaller kind of little L-shaped one over here on the right-hand side. And then afterwards, on the left-hand side, that's gonna be where the power is. So we're gonna take our little data cable and we're gonna put it into there. So we have our hard drives installed. So next we're gonna do probably one of the last things before we do cable management is I'm gonna install the power supply in this thing, route all the cables that it's going to need. And then afterwards we're gonna try turning it on, make sure everything works first before making it look pretty. Just because you don't want to make it look pretty, then all of a sudden you find out you have a faulty part and you have to take it all apart. So that's what I like to do. So next up, let's get the power supply in this bad boy, because like every computer, it needs power.
There you go.
And next up, we have our Seasonic 1250 watt power supply over here. It's probably overkill, to be honest, for what we're doing, but we just wanted to make sure we have enough power for all the components that we have. Especially when you're running 2 video cards, that's one thing to note, that you're gonna need more power than just one conventional one. Another choice that we went with as well is this is known as a modular power supply, because all of the cables that are gonna be connecting to the components, the CPU, the motherboard, the fans, everything else, the video cards, it's gonna be, we get to choose which ones we're gonna use, and the ones that we don't use, they're just gonna be left out. So there's gonna be easier in terms of cable management. This is great to keeping your setup clean. There are ones that are kind of half modular, so some of the main ones are gonna be there, and then you can add additional ones if you need to, and then there are the cheaper ones that aren't modular at all. So this one we've chosen to go with the modular one just because cable management is gonna be a lot easier. So what we've gone ahead and we're gonna do is we're gonna just make sure we align these little screw holes that are here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The case already provided us with the the screws, so we'll put them back here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna line it up over here, and I'm gonna show you guys that the screws are in place in certain orders, here, 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 and here. So we're gonna just get those all screwed in to make sure that the power supply is secured into the computer with the provided thumb screws, with the provided power supply screws that the case provider gave us. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw that in and then just show you guys the final product. So here we have our motherboard connected. What I'm gonna just do is already do some nice cable management, just feed these cables through the back grommets over here so it's not really as seen. And then afterwards, pull it through. This is the motherboard.
Looking beast, by the way.
I know. So we're gonna pull it through on this end over here. And we're just gonna flip it around to be able to connect it. So you'll know you're connecting it when there's this little ridge over here, and there's, on this equivalent over here, there's a clip. So the clip goes into the ridge. I like to think that building computers is kind of like big people Lego for adults, because a lot of this stuff only goes in one way, and you don't really have to worry about pushing it in the wrong way, because if it takes too much force to put it in, you're probably not doing it correctly. So this part over here now is we're going to be connecting it to on here. It might be hard to see. I'll try typing it for you guys. Where it says MB, meaning motherboard. So we're going to be connecting the bigger cable connection onto here. Doing that first. So then we'll know that the motherboard is being powered up. So that clicked right in. So we're good to go on that one. Okay, so the next one we have over here is we're gonna do the CPU. So the CPU power connection is all the way up here. You can see it's the 12 volt one over here. All the way up there. So hopefully this one should have a nice, decent amount of length to it. Hopefully it can be run around the back, and if not, we might have to get an extender. Hopefully that's not the case. So first and foremost, same kind of deal. We're gonna run it through the back first. And this is wonderfully labeled because it actually tells you where it goes to, CPU, PSU. So we're gonna run it through the back here first.
That's convenient.
Yeah, just to make this all like nice cable managed, at least from the get-go. Run it through the top one over here. Push it through. There we go. So same kind of deal. There's the ridge on the top here. The clip is on the top part there.
Is it long enough?
Hopefully. Let's see. And we're gonna just plug it right into there. Once I can get my orientation going here. Might have to just flip it around here really quickly. Thank goodness these things are pretty malleable. And we're just gonna go ahead and plug it into there. Nice and firmly. So the clip is on, and then run this part through the bottom here. And plug it into the area that mentions CPU, which is this bottom one over here, CPU slash PCI Express. So either way, it'll go in.
Does it fit? Length?
Oh yeah, length is good. It's just the cable's being a little finicky with me, but other than that, it should be good. And it's a little dark in there, so it's hard to see. But there we go. Nice and clipped in.
That's two
so
for
now, yeah, 2 for 2. So the CPU is now connected. Next up, we're gonna connect our.
I'm just showing this.
Yeah, go ahead, go inside. It's messy now, but we're gonna be cleaning it up later. But
going to the
CPU up top.
CPU,
Yep.
and then this one's the motherboard.
Exactly. So all this is gonna get cleaned up afterwards. Push it closer to here so we can put the.
I mean,
back
though, you'll
panel
never
up.
see this side.
You'll never see this side because it's gonna be covered by a flat panel. As I mentioned, this is the windowed version, so there's gonna be a window here that you can see. So of course you're gonna want it to be nice and cleaned up. There's actually even services that you guys can buy that have, for particular models, you can buy custom cables to have certain colors. But for this, we're just gonna go with the default ones for now, make it look a little prettier later. So last but certainly not least is we're gonna be powering, the hard drives need power too. So what we're gonna do is, we're actually gonna plug this in first into the hard drive. So both of the hard drives are located on the back. So I already know from personal experience, like I said, it's a little small L, so make sure you line it up. Even on the power things, you can see it's like a little L on there. So you make sure you line it up. It's an L, like a small L.
Oh, okay.
It's very small L, like the bottom part is really small. It's hard to see. So I'm gonna make sure that these ones fit first and foremost. I already know which way it goes since I've used these hard drives before, but you guys make sure to double check which way it goes. And as mentioned, if it doesn't go in like without a lot of force, that's a good thing. But if you're putting a lot of pressure on it, that's not good. Make sure to just double check the connection. So same thing over here. I'm gonna push it into this one. So now both hard drives have power, and we're gonna push this through the grommet over here. Make sure it looks somewhat tidy, at least for now. And we'll clean this up a little bit later. And we're gonna put it in the area that mentions peripherals, IDE, and SATA, because that's what these ones are here. They're SATA power. And there you go. So right now, everything is connected, at least to each other, to power and through their data ports. Next up is probably the most, I would say, the one that gets your heart beating the most is to actually see if these components are all working together. And that's powering it up and see if you hear any beeps, any errors and whatnot. And then going ahead, of course, and also installing your OS of choice. We're gonna be using Windows 10 in this computer. So let's go try it out, Andre, and let's see if this bad boy works. And hopefully it does, and then we can do our cable management afterwards. But right now I think it looks pretty slick. So let's get to the heart racing part of actually trying this bad boy and turning it on. So now the moment of truth, we're gonna, hopefully everything else is switched on correctly, and we're gonna power it up, so let's see.
Damn, look at those fans. That's always a good feeling, isn't it?
Seeing the power come on, yep, that's a good one.
Yeah, this.
And hopefully
case
everything comes up on screen. That's probably the bigger thing. Before we install Windows, I just want to make sure we can even get into the BIOS.
Sounds quiet. It's cold. It's getting chilly in here.
Oh, that's a good sign right there to see that that's at least loaded up. So let's go into the BIOS. Make sure everything's connected. To make sure, we're going to see if, first of all, it recognizes all of our hard drives. That's probably a big thing to make sure that it does, and all of our RAM. So already just actually on this screen, you might have to go through it more so depending on your system and depending on what motherboard you use. They're all a little bit different. But what we can already see from this one, you might have to go through some menus, but it does indeed recognize all of our RAM slots, all 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of the 16 gigabytes on each of them. And we can also see that it also references both of our hard drives, the 1 terabyte SSD and the 4 terabyte Western Digital one. So that's really good news so far. That means that everything is getting recognized. It recognizes our CPU, it recognizes our speed, how much RAM we have, and everything so far. So this is a great sign. So what we're going to be doing now, and these next steps, is actually going to be installing Windows, making sure everything else works in that regard, making sure all of our other items work with it, and just making sure in general that everything works.
So this is finally what the beast looks like. You can see the fans sort of through the side. Inside you get the better look over here. I think the plan is put some blue LEDs around the sides there, and I think that'll be the final. That's for another day though. This awesome build is complete. Shout out to Billy over here, Typical Reviews, for the epic job. Best computer guy I know. And damn, lots of live streams coming soon, guys.
Thank you guys very much for tuning in to this for Typical Gamers Ultimate Gaming Build vlog, blog thing, whatever you want to call it, or even log, just because, you know, we took it from step 1 through to all the way the final steps for it. So this is the final beast in its completion with Windows and everything else installed on it. You guys can see it, the fans running, the side open. We're probably going to be doing some more customization in the future, but for now we need something that works and works really well just to get those live streams back up and running again. We'll probably add some like LEDs maybe around the windowed area. We'll probably even maybe change the PSU, that little area over there, change the back fan as well. But overall, this thing is up and running. Windows is working perfectly right on it. You guys can see it in the background over there. So that's the part that matters most, is getting the thing working, and the cables are all managed, so you see very minimalistic. I enjoy this case, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video too. So I'm going to be leaving a link in the description for all of the parts that we used in this one here. You don't have to necessarily use the same ones for yours. I'm going to be doing future videos on different builds of different price range and for different types of purposes as well, whether it be gaming, video editing, video streaming, whatever it is, we'll be doing more in the future. So if you guys enjoy this video and would like to see more videos just like that, leave us a thumbs up on this particular video so I know that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you guys would like to see more builds of different gaming computers and video streaming computers, whatever it might be, you guys like this stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything else. So thank you guys very much for tuning into this build log for Typical Gamers Ultimate Gaming PC, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out.